G'day guys, it's Ben here from Pumped on Property. Today I'm with one of my idols, Phil Anderson.
Ben, how you going?
Good to meet you, mate, in person.
Okay.
Phil did a talk down here in Melbourne last night, which a bunch of the Pumped on Property community was there.
Yeah, I'm still recovering.
Still recovering. I'm sorry, man. I know you said it's not your day to day, but appreciate you doing this for me as well.
Well, that's right. It's afternoon now.
Phil's looking to go out for some lunch as soon as this is over. So I've seen him looking at the clock, and hopefully today I can ask some of the questions that we all have for Phil and keep it conversational and, you know, hopefully keep Phil in the room for half an hour or something like that. First question that I had was, when did you start noticing cycles in your life?
Ben, that goes back a long way. I don't know, 10, 12. Other kids used to be playing marbles, but I was collecting newspaper cuttings on the gold price, believe it or not. So I wanted to understand a bit more about why things moved as they did. I don't know why I had that bent, but it was sort of mixed between trying to become a professional golfer and stuff. It was, you know, anything to just not go to school. I hated school, so I had to do other things, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought if working life is like this, and it's not even as enjoyable at school, because I just want to get out of school.
Sure.
I thought I'd better do something I was interested in. And even at 12 or 13, I was thinking that. So I was looking at the stock market. I just happened to be looking at prices and things. I just used to record them on just the day's prices, right? And I just noticed they went up and down, so we left it at that. But you know, you noticed as well. You know, there were just things you could see, and my father or my folks ran a embroidery business. It's ladies' lingerie and stuff. I mean, fashion goes in cycles. And that forever, you know, people working in that field were forever trying to forecast what might be next year's fashion and what would work, what doesn't work.
Sure.
You know, what went around came around. You could see it. It was just.
I remember you telling in Brisbane when we were there that your parents' business actually did better in a GFC because people felt like having a bit more fun at that time when things were no good.
Yeah, it was prior to the GFC. We're going back 30 years, the one before. But yeah, it was just we noticed that so we had an embroidery business. You can make things look a little better than they are by adding embroidery to stuff.
Sure.
And yeah, it was more popular in downturns. So, and that's what we did. So, you know, we had a profitable business in a downturn. It was one of the few that is.
And when did cycles become your full-time business and full-time, you know, passion?
When I wanted to get out of the family business, it was a little stressful. I've always done economics. I've done economics and accounting at university. I noticed when I did my economics degree a long time ago, economists just didn't seem to have any idea what was going on, despite the fact that what was out there, it was abundantly clear that what they were proposing just doesn't work.
Sure.
So I just thought it might be. My basic aim was really to try and work out and to try and prove that you can forecast. That was the basic thing. I've always thought you can have a decent idea of what the future might bring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Ben, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can. I can't. I'm not saying that.
There's no crystal ball here, guys. No, Phil's not a magician.
But I'm not saying that. You know, I can forecast that you're going to walk down Brisbane Main Street tomorrow and break your leg. You know, it's not that. It's not that type of thing. Yes, but there are general things you can look at, the way the population moves.
Mm-hmm.
You can get some sort of idea. And it goes back to, I read a book, now that I think about it, I read a book, it escapes me, Hari Seldon. Do you remember, if you've ever read some of Isaac, the name escapes me, the guy that wrote all the classic sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, Hari Seldon was the guy in the book that was able to use whole heap of science to forecast millions of years out. So I thought, that'd be pretty cool. Let's see if we can do it. So I started up here where we're interviewing today. I started up at an office downstairs and just thought, if I could collect a few statistics, you might be able to forecast stuff. And luck or not, I don't know. The first thing I studied was Nikolai Kondratiev and the Kondratiev wave.
Mm-hmm.
And here we were in the mid-1990s very low commodity prices. So I thought that would illustrate a lot of difficulties for miners. And so if you recall 1997, 98, a lot of mining companies, MIM and a few others, all collapsed. I was busy trying to tell them all about that.
Sure.
I also
Were they listening at that time?
Yes, no, I also learned. I was forecasting a really big major commodity boom. This is all on my old website. I said from about the year 2000, commodity prices are going to make a serious up move, and you've got to be ready. Well, it was just so over the head. They just couldn't get it. But and in the finish, that's what happened. Yeah, and that's how it all started. And then I just people started. I just got onto the real estate stuff and worked from there because family's always been interested in property and real estate. Well, I thought, it's just the way it went.
Sure. Phil's book, for anyone who hasn't checked it out, it's The Secret Life of Real Estate and Banking, and looks at about 240 odd years of American history.
US history, yes. Going back
history.
to 1800 years. Fundamental to study US history.
Yeah. And so
I've had some amazing feedback from that book. It's been quite humbling. Really.
That book has changed my life.
Yeah. People have written back and said just what it's done.
I've
also got a number of people say, Phil,
on you.
Phil, I wish I had met you 10 years ago. I wish I'd read this book 15 years ago.
Oh, sure.
But yeah. Well.
Phil, that was based on some research prior to that from Fred Harrison as well, who's the London-based economist. And again, the two of you seem to be one of a few people globally that seem to be able to see the future a little bit clearer than others based on, as you call it, what is it?
Economic
History doesn't
rent,
repeat,
economic rent, but the land market. It's the land market. That's the driver, really.
Sure.
You have, and it's just statistics that are not so obvious today. But it's the land market.
Look, everyone's going to go read Phil's book and subscribe to his new service when he launches it in the next few months. But I've got some real fans in my community, and I've got some questions from them. Do you mind if I sort of hit you up?
Sure.
I'll keep that one till the end that we discuss because it's a bit of a biggie. But what are the rules you follow today when you buy property for yourself?
Location. It's all about, but not only location, but yield, numbers.
Sure.
Numbers.
So you're looking for high yielding, or you're looking for growth, or a combination?
The numbers have got to stack up.
Sure.
It's got to yield a return. But of course, it depends. It depends on your horizon and how long term you are and what it is you're trying to do for yourself. And I can't know this. I can't know all those. I can only know for myself.
Can I like lift the hood of the bonnet and what interests you over the next 15 years? I know you're more in the stock market these days.
Ben, I'd put it this way: the business that you think you're in, usually it's not what you're in.
Sure.
And it's if you look at the classic example of somebody that might be offering long-term storage for people, those people that offer safe lock-up and
Kenneth's and all those guys.
Yes, right. If they're smart about stuff, they're not really in the long term. They're not really in the storage business.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting on a block of land.
Sure.
In the long run, what's going to make them more money? So the idea is to think about what business you're really in. It's like a hairdresser. Hairdresser, I'll tell you, they cut hair. But are they really cutting hair? They're in the business of trying to make people look better when they walk out than when they walked in.
I love this.
Yes? Okay, so that's the thing. That's what you've got to look at. You got to know that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so when you buy for yourself now, do you buy for passive income and yield, or are you always looking for that future potential based on that location value and enclosing that economic rent down the line for that bigger profit or payday?
No, in London, I've just been looking at, we were looking at, we still do, just trying to add value to the site,
sure.
really, and then, develop it a little bit.
Okay.
And sell it on. I'm more in the development field. Me personally, I'm not really looking to hold property. I'm
so happy to hear that.
And one of the other things I do, this is a bit of my Henry George background in a way. I don't like seeing empty properties. I don't like seeing derelict properties.
Sure.
So I have spent a bit of time trying to bring old properties, derelict properties, back into use.
That's awesome.
Because I like to see them. I like to see people living there. Or a business in them, and whatever else.
Sure.
Especially in London and around England, there's just so many unused, underused, or derelict properties around. And it's dreadful. They should be being used. So that's been my major goal, really, more than anything else. And I make money by doing it, which is fair enough.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. The next question that I had was, you've just sort of answered it, but do you sell property at the top of the cycle in preparation to rebuy, or do you hold? You sort of said like you don't hold long term.
Once you buy property, never sell.
Okay.
Why would you sell?
Yeah.
Can't see it. The only thing with the cycle, obviously, is when you're at the top. If we've got all the dates, and I've been able to see that clearly in the past.
Sure.
You just don't become highly leveraged, and you just don't do stupid things.
Okay.
It's not always that easy. The other thing too, of course, which has been useful, and a number of people that have bought my book when they've written back to me, they've bought it not only for themselves but also for their kids, because how often have you seen it where your kids come into the market almost exactly at the wrong time?
Completely.
So I've tried to. People who've bought the book for summertimes, they've been trying to tell the kids, I know, my son's going to be probably looking for his first property around 2025, 2026. I don't want him. It's such a major decision. If you're getting in at the wrong time, it can affect you for almost for a lifetime sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's a critical decision. So I don't want him. I don't want him making the same mistakes and messing up right at that peak. Should it happen?
Feels. I'm paraphrasing here, and I'm probably going to be corrected as well, but it's a rough 14 years up with a bit of a dip in the middle, followed by a 2 to 3 year major correction and then a slow recovery.
That's about right.
Into the next cycle. So 18.6 years, give or take 2 or 3, either side. But effectively, what Phil and I don't want to see is people over leveraging at the wrong time at the top to then, lose 30, 40, 50% or even further. And as you said, it could take 10, 20 years to recover.
Yeah.
More just the emotional recovery as well. When you should be going hard, often that scar tissue hangs with you and you don't.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. The next question is, what happens to credit in a GFC style environment or a previous recession, and how can investors over the next 5-6 years set themselves up in the best position to still look good for the banks at that time? Because that's a big question a lot of my community has. How do we keep moving forward if income drops, if yields drop, etc., to look good for the bank to borrow more money when no one else is?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult question. You have to present yourself to look good to the bank, obviously.
Cash flow, cash in bank.
Well, first up, you want to make sure you've paid you pay things when they're due.
Sure.
And don't take advantage of stuff. Give yourself a good. I've always had a good credit record. Plus. Oh, that's a tough one. No,
I didn't give you this one before, so I'm throwing you on the spot there.
Keep yourself good with credit and stuff. But I don't know if I can answer that question directly. You've just got to know. You've just got to know yourself and how you react, and give yourself a good past history and present yourself well. That's
sure.
The only thing you can do.
Okay, I'll talk about that in another video as well. This is the question that I think I really wanted to ask, which is, you've learnt so much. If you were starting again today, if you were 20, 30 years of age with everything that you know, what would you do differently, and how would you be setting yourself up over the next 30 or 40 years?
Yep. Well, what I'm about to say probably can't be replicated anymore.
Sure.
But if I had the chance to, if I knew then what I know now,
sure.
I would have been buying caravan parks.
Okay.
That's what I would have been buying.
Sure.
Because it's in, our family, we had my folks had a caravan down at Phillip Island, caravan park on the beach.
Yep.
What could only be described as the perfect location.
Sure.
It's no longer there, obviously. So some developer has come
Not
along.
all, yep.
Yes, and they've bought the land and they've put on some really nice developments, and it looks really good, and it's enabled people to live really well by the beach. So really, I remember the old caravan park owners.
Yep.
They thought they were running a caravan park.
Sure.
It's not, in hindsight, it's not really what they were doing, really. They're just minding the land for a developer, aren't they, really?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure, probably, I don't know this for certain, I'm just assuming, but I have a fair idea that former caravan park owners have probably sold to someone else as a caravan park.
Yeah.
Yes, and the guy that's bought it, if he was street smart, he's probably saying, all right, I'll just tell these guys it is a caravan park, but I know
it's a development site. Yeah.
And, the uplift.
Beautiful.
And you can see, you go around Australia, caravan parks disappearing.
I live on the Sunshine Coast, and in all of the Sunshine Coast, all those parks have been rebought.
Yeah.
Around about that same time,
Yes.
and you're just seeing them fall one after the other.
Yeah, that's right. So hindsight, 2020 vision and stuff. But having said that though, the strategy, you're not going to just necessarily find the same things these days.
Mm-hmm.
However, having said that, I can't talk about Brisbane. Don't know it so well.
Sure.
But you just look in Melbourne. Melbourne, it is. You just walk around town. It is so underdeveloped. I don't know if you've had a chance.
I was walking from here to there, and there's a 28-storey building next to a 2-storey one. And
yes,
Melbourne doesn't feel like Tokyo.
Absolutely. Melbourne has, I believe, I don't know the full statistics, but Melbourne has still a lot of what is called walk-ups.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2-storey buildings in the central business district in the CBD that don't have a lift. So you've got the ground floor and the first floor, and stairs to get up to the second floor. A lot of those. If you happen to walk down Elizabeth Street, just Elizabeth Street from Flinders Street Station, you walk right up towards Melbourne University. The sites there are basically almost just still 2 and 3 floors.
Yep.
All that has to be redeveloped.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just in the CBD itself.
Sure.
Somebody's got to do that, and it'll happen. It'll happen more and more now. Now that they're building the stations now they're putting in,
mm-hmm.
and the new metro train line.
Yeah.
But not only that, if you were just to go around, just sort of not central Box Hill, it's about 10 k's out of town, but more, just say about 500 metres, maybe a kilometre outside of central Box Hill station,
mm-hmm.
there are places there that are they're just wooden shacks, really. They've been there since the 1950s or 60s, sitting on a big block of land. That's today's.
Because you've obviously been all over the world and seen it, my thoughts is until within 10 k's of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane is, as you said, skyscrapers, the land hasn't been accurately priced for the future.
That's right. Well, they don't have to be skyscrapers, but they've just got to be better housing.
Sure.
It's housing. Maybe you could instead of one's rotting wooden house, you could put some really 2 or 3 really nice units,
mm-hmm.
and you have to rebuild the city that way because it enables better living. It enables all the appliances and stuff that everybody want.
Sure.
Not only that, but you've got all the better technology and stuff that goes in it. This is what people want these days.
Sure.
So all this is coming. It is going to be done,
mm-hmm.
and I think this is going to go on for the entire 21st century.
Yep.
And very bullish overall, especially what I see in Melbourne. It's incredible, really.
Sure. And
the opportunities are enormous.
What if you don't come from your background with your level of success / appetite for these things, what if someone's sitting there, they can't afford a caravan park, they can't afford a development site in the city? How do you slowly play out the cycle? If you're just the average person earning $100,000 a year combined, and that's their life.
In my opinion, I can't tell anybody else what to do, but in my opinion, you have to find a way to get into the market to get some land. You have to find a way to do that because as you know, the land price, the land value takes all the gains of society over the long term.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find a way to get in. Doesn't matter how you do it, you just have to get in.
Sure.
So you just start. And when you just start. You don't worry about what anybody else is doing. You don't worry about where you are in the cycle.
Sure.
You don't worry about whatever you're doing. You try and get some decent suggestions and advice, from people like yourself that know a bit about it. But you get in. You just get in. And what happens once you get in? you make a decision, you get in, and it just opens up a change. It opens up something that will eventually come your way, because all of a sudden you're a landowner.
You're a landowner.
And it changes perspective, and it gives you the opportunity to have other stuff coming your way. You just got to start, just get in. Whatever it is you got to do, you just get in.
What Phil's talking about there is the enclosure of the rent or the gains in society, that surplus is always taken back from the land. So if you look at the Australian government at the moment, by 2024, they're expecting, if the current government stays in, which who knows, but they're saying that anyone earning up to $180,000 a year will be taxed at 30%. Now, some of those people are currently taxed at 47%. As you said, there's a surplus. Rents and land is where that money flows, but people just don't get that.
No.
My last question, and I'm so grateful for this, I'm just like a little kid here, is what are the major investment lessons you've learned over the last 30 years? Now, there's heaps, but just some of the biggies that young guys like myself can learn from and hopefully apply moving forward without having to go through it the hard way.
I think we've all got to do these things. Some of the major investment decisions.
Major lessons,
lessons.
Stuff you've learnt the hard way, which is losing cash and losing opportunity more than cash even.
Know and understand the person you're dealing with. If you're in partnerships with people, know that things can go wrong.
Sure.
You probably should try and operate yourself where you can.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in business here and there with a number of people where it just sort of didn't work out, and then you get into arguments and stuff.
It's good to see that you're a free agent again now. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. I don't know if this was a lesson, but it's something I did get from my father, in a sense that probably why I'm not a major housing landlord, in a sense. I have families in commercial. My father always said he didn't really want to get into buying houses and renting them, because you're effectively buying other people's problems.
Sure.
So I learned that before I even started. I think I've always been happy with that, which is why I've done development stuff, and I'm more comfortable with that.
Sure. So from doing developments and your understanding of the cycle, you strategically pick off times. Like, you're not someone who can, you talk about the young guys that can just sort of get in there and hold through regardless of where they're entering. But from your perspective, you've strategically used that information and overlaid it with your acquisitions to, get that better return as well.
Well, yes, if I learn one thing, don't try and get everything right.
Okay.
It's not doable to get everything right.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. As you know, I've shown before, 2007, I was walking down Lygon Street with a mate of mine. I'd just come from the bank, Westpac Bank. I talked to the manager there and said, right, 2009 is going to be substantially different to 2007.
Yeah.
We are going to get a crash. The lady there.
She would have known what you were talking about.
Who is this idiot? Just as if he knows what's going to happen, right? So, all right. So I said to the manager there, assess me now. Here's everything you've got. I want to be in a good position. Mm-hmm. Talking with the bank, I want to be in a good position. I want my loans ready for 2009 because I want to be going and buying in Melbourne. Yes.
So you were getting yourself set up, redrawing
doing
equity,
all these things,
everything.
Yes, to get ready. Well, as you know, subsequent as history has shown, I think it was the only city in the world where property prices went up in 2009 was
Sure.
Melbourne, right? I think that's because all the Perth people influx with all that mining money were coming into Melbourne to buy up, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be humble enough to say, well, I prepared
Doesn't
for
always
that,
work out.
But
perfectly.
no, that's right. So you've got to run with that. Having said that, though, at the time, the Australian dollar was still doing really well. The pound dropped. I was able to put some money over there, and we did some stuff in the UK, so it wasn't all bad. So you have to be flexible a little
Sure.
bit. Now, I could do that because I'd retired to France before that, so I had European residency and I had all my businesses set up already in the UK. So from that point of view, it was very easy to swap. But but you got to take it how you got to take them how it falls. Sometimes you can't, even though I was set up and ready, it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah, sure. No, that's really interesting. Is there anything, I suppose the last thing that I wanted to ask is, and I saw you talk about this a bit last night, how do you feel about the future? Because some young people feel differently about it. Some feel like they're not going to have the same opportunity their parents did. Some people feel like in Australia that we've just gone through things, and people around the world are feeling the same things. I personally am excited as hell about the future, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Oh, there's so much I could say about that, Ben. Where do you start? Last night was fantastic. It was really, I got a lot of feedback. It was really, Arkill's great.
Arkill crushed it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right? So you can see why I pull him in, right?
Yeah.
Looking forward, I look at my, he's 18 now. Look at my son. You remember, I don't know if you're old enough to remember.
I've read so much about history, it's not a joke, but I don't know.
But you're in the era now with all the technology, right?
Yeah,
but
look at my desk.
When I shifted out of home, I couldn't, I had a great upbringing. It was fantastic. Mum and dad were tremendous and stuff, but still, I couldn't wait to get out of home. Right?
Sure.
So, 18, I moved. Now, I had a car. In the back of my boot of the car, I had to put my alarm clock, my radio, I had to put my small TV, my record player, my records, and my music. And
what were you driving back then? Just so everyone can.
It was a HG Holden.
Yeah.
Back then, those column shift. It was green, right? Great car, sturdily built. It was good. But,
still the haircut that you've got now, rolling
my age, right? But you look at it today. I look at my 18-year-old, right, in his bedroom. He's got all that on his phone. It's just one thing. So if he liked it at home, he's got it really good, right? So I don't think he ever wants to shift. We'll probably have to kick him out. But it's just a completely different scenario. Now, having said that, right, people worried about the cost of housing and the cost of living and everything else. It's always been tough. There's never been a situation when it hasn't been tough as young people when you're starting out.
I'm just going to reaffirm that it has always been tough, and this time is no different.
That's right. So don't start thinking at the moment that you're different to anybody else, the young people coming through. It's not. But I think the logic is slightly different. I grew up, coming through the late 70s and the 80s. The mindset was a bit different, and I've explained that because we were on the downside of what's called the Kondratiev commodities wave. It was a little bit different. The opportunities, it was a bit. I think, in my view, it was a little tougher than today because the unemployment it was harder to get a job, especially for working class. And the mines were shutting down, and there was lots and lots of turmoil and things. These days. You can basically start up something from your bedroom in some things. Yep. So, I think you've got to think through these things, but the opportunities are substantial now. But that doesn't mean it's easy by any means, and it doesn't mean it's cost-free either.
Sure.
Housing's expensive, obviously expensive, but mate, it's always been expensive. As you know, history shows it's always been expensive.
Sure.
And yet you just have to find a way to get in, get on, and keep trying to have other people pay off what you're trying to do.
An example of this, I was speaking to a bloke last night, and I'll share one of your stories if that's okay as well. So this guy last night was from Hong Kong, and he said, Ben, Melbourne, from my perspective right now, is 30% cheaper than it was last year. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, with the dip in the Australian dollar and the 15% correction, Melbourne looks like they're selling it on a fire sale at 70 cents in the dollar, and that's why you're starting to see the spike in Sydney and Melbourne again. And those types of things, it might be expensive to an Aussie earning whatever, but to the rest of the world, some of these cities are safe.
That's a good point. That is one thing that is slightly different. That might be making things a little bit harder. I'd accept that.
Global.
The fact now that cities like Melbourne, Sydney, and a few others, it's not just a city for Indigenous Australians for Australians and local people. It's now a buyer's market, and you can be anywhere in the world to do that. Other cities are facing that as well. This is not something it's for Australians a little bit new, but hey, I remember the days, Australians would all go to Bali and try and buy property in Bali. And the locals, you're pricing them out. So we're now being priced out. So it's just a little bit of history repeating, but in different location.
The second thing you said last night, and the guy next to me, Google's just launched their first credit card, so they're now moving into finance. And you sort of said, well, Apple's got $270 billion cash in the bank. We might see Apple move out of some tech and into property at the later stages of the cycle. So there's always potential for things to change.
Now
and
you've made a
to
very
come.
interesting point, and this is why I urge people to study history. It's why I urge people to read my book, because the history is in it. You can't look at the second half of the cycle. You can't look at the second half of the cycle and extrapolate it from the first half of the cycle. It's going to be different. And you have to extrapolate all the past history, but apply what you learned into the next cycle. And you can see that people will start to see Apple, others. Akil made a great point last night, which I'm not sure a lot of people picked up on. People will start to notice as the cycle develops. People start to notice that there's more money in what we call the rent. They don't see it as rent, but there's more money in doing that than actually working for a living.
Yeah.
And Apple, Google, Ali, the Chinese companies,
Alibaba.
Yes, Alibaba and all the others. They will start. It's highly likely that they'll start moving into finance and possibly even mortgages.
Sure.
And they'll do that from a technology viewpoint, and the people with the technology, the younger people coming through, they'll deal with that much better than we older folk, and they'll gravitate to that because it'll all be on their phone.
I spoke to an Uber driver on the way here, and he said that he had a bloke in the back of the car yesterday that had just started his own bank. Ninja, he just changed the N and put X. You know what I mean? This is just a punter in Melbourne starting his own bank.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Now, banks require a license, so he'll have to at some point.
He's got his license.
Yeah, well, there you go. Look at that.
You know, this is just a guy sitting in the back of an Uber talking to the driver about what he's up to.
Yes. And so for him, people opening accounts, it'll all be done on a phone with the picture and everything else. No branches. You won't be going into a bank and all the old stuff and things. So easy. It's hard work, but done in a different. Same procedure, same thing, different procedure. It's just done in a new way.
I know you're hungry, and I know it's a big GAN day apparently today. And
today, tomorrow. Notice you get the extremes. If people want to carry something forward from here, certain days every month bring changes in the weather and the extremes.
Sure.
It's always around the 6th, the 15th, and the 22nd.
Okay.
It's unbelievable how that works. That's really what I'm moving into study now. It's unbelievable, incredible.
Do you mind if we talk for 5 more minutes about your passion and what's fueling you moving forward now? Because, I know that you're hungry as well.
Well, we can. You might. Well, my passion now. That's easy. I am sick and tired of government. I'm sick and tired of politicians, and I would like to see a world where politicians are not paid, very minimal government, and the funding comes partially from the rent.
Sure.
And that's what I do now. That's what I'm interested in. Pretty simple, but I just think there's so many people like me who are just sick and tired of the bloody politicians. They're just not getting anything done. And it's all right in Australia. Basically, I think Australia's a pretty honest system, and I think the politicians here basically.
You showed us an article yesterday on stage of a payoff, but these things happen.
The developers paying the Labor Party out in
it's pretty good compared to everywhere else.
But if you're looking at South America and places like that where there's dictators in charge, they're ripping off the country blind, and the people living in dreadful conditions. I think it's about time the world did something about that. Just simply put in a better system, get rid of these dictators that are just. We're talking hundreds of millions they're ripping off, which they're storing in banks that they shouldn't be able to do.
So that's what I want. Getting a second book titled A New Earth or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. I'm so grateful for today. Is there anything you wanted to leave with anyone, or we've sort of said enough?
If you haven't started yet, start.
Sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys.